If you had to choose between a lifetime of comfortable lies and one singular moment of devastating truth, which would you reach for? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt the sudden, terrifying realization that they could ruin your life and you'd let them? What part of your past do you keep locked away because you're afraid it would turn your favorite person into a stranger? If we were the only two people left in a world that didn't know our names, who would you choose to become in my arms? Does the idea of being truly known by someone scare you more than the idea of being alone forever? Have you ever felt a soul-deep ache for someone you haven't even met yet, as if your heart was keeping a seat warm for a guest who is running late? If you could whisper one forbidden desire into my ear and know it would stay between us forever, what would it be? Is a kiss ever just a kiss, or is it a silent contract written in the dark? What would happen if you stopped being the person everyone expects you to be and started being the person who makes your heart beat too fast? Could you love someone who has seen the parts of you that you find unforgivable? If I told you that my heart was a glasshouse, would you come inside or would you be afraid of the shards? Have you ever felt that the most beautiful things in life are the ones that are destined to end? If our story was written in the stars, would you be brave enough to rewrite the ending? What if the happily ever after isn't a destination, but the courage to stay even when the masks fall off? Would you let me be the one who sees the tears you hide behind your laughter? Can you feel the electricity in the space between us? And are you willing to let it burn? If you realize that the stranger you fell for in the dark was actually the person you've been avoiding in the light, would you feel betrayed by fate or grateful for the disguise? Have you ever loved someone so fiercely that you were willing to sacrifice your own happiness just to keep their secrets safe from the world? What if the Cinderella you've been searching for isn't a girl with a glass slipper, but a girl with a heart full of scars that match your own? If you could go back to that 1 hour of anonymity, would you choose to know her name, or is the mystery the only thing that made the magic possible? Have you ever felt that a single moment of connection was worth 1,000 years of loneliness? Can you look past the mistakes of a person's past to see the beauty of who they are trying to become for you? If I told you that my heart was already yours before I even knew your face, would you think I was crazy or would you tell me you felt it too? Is it possible for two broken people to fit together so perfectly that they finally feel whole? What if the hardest part of falling in love isn't the fall itself, but the courage to stay grounded when the truth comes out? If you had to choose between your best friend's loyalty and the love of your life, could you live with the silence that follows? Have you ever felt like you were living a lie, only to realize that the lie was the only thing keeping you sane? If I offered you a future that was messy and difficult but entirely ours, would you take my hand and never look back? Can you forgive yourself for the choices you made when you were just trying to survive? What does it feel like when you finally stop running and realize that the person you were running from is the only one who can save you? Ready to trade the fairy tale for something real, something raw, and something that lasts forever? If you could choose to be understood perfectly by just one person, but remain a stranger to the rest of the world, would you take that chance or would you prefer the shallow affection of the many? When you look at the clock and see it strike an hour that shouldn't exist, do you feel a thrill of rebellion or a cold shiver of fear? If your every movement were being watched and every sound you made was recorded, what is the one secret part of your soul you would fight hardest to keep hidden? Would you be willing to live in a world where the past is rewritten every day if it meant you never had to feel the sting of a painful memory again? How much of your own reality are you willing to sacrifice to feel like you belong to something greater than yourself? If you knew that saying 2 + 2 = 5 would save the person you love from suffering, would you say it until you actually believed it? What is the most dangerous thought you have ever allowed yourself to hold onto in the dark? Is there a place in your mind where no darkness can reach? And who is the only person you would invite to meet you there? Would you rather be a lonely person who knows the truth or a happy person who lives a beautiful lie? If you could hide a diary that no one would ever find, what is the first sentence you would write to prove to yourself that you still exist? Do you believe that your heart can keep a secret that your face might betray? Or do you think the body always eventually tells the truth? If you had to choose between the freedom to think whatever you wanted in a cage or the freedom to move anywhere but with a mind that wasn't yours, which would you choose? How many of your beliefs are truly your own? And how many were whispered into your ear until they felt like home? If you were the last person on earth who remembered what a sunrise truly felt like, would you try to tell others even if they called you mad? Is it more important to be loved or to be right? What is the one thing you would never give up, even if the world demanded it of you in the name of peace? If you could see into the future and saw a boot stamping on a human face forever, would you still have the courage to fall in love today? If you could find a small, hidden corner of the world where you were finally alone, would you use that silence to discover who you truly are, or would the quiet frighten you? Is there someone in your life whose gaze feels like a physical weight, making you wonder if they are your greatest enemy or the only person who truly sees you. Have you ever felt a surge of pure, unadulterated hatred for someone you don't even know? And did that heat make you feel more alive or more ashamed? If you were forced to join a screaming crowd, would you hide your silence behind a mask of noise, or would you find a way to let your heart beat at a different rhythm? What is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen in a place of utter ugliness? If you caught the eye of a stranger for a single second and felt an instant, soul-deep connection, would you risk your life to follow them, or would you let the moment vanish into the fog of what might have been? Do you believe that a shared secret is the strongest foundation for love, or is it merely a shared death sentence? If you could whisper a single truth into the ear of someone powerful, knowing they might destroy you for it, would the relief of being heard be worth the price? When you look at a face that radiates power and mystery, do you find yourself wanting to break them or wanting them to save you? Have you ever written something down just to prove to the universe that your thoughts happened? If your memories were the only evidence that the world was once different, would you trust your mind, or would you let the world convince you that you are dreaming? Is it possible to truly love someone if you are constantly afraid of them? What part of your identity would you be willing to burn away to stay safe in the arms of the majority? If you knew that your most private rebellion would change nothing for the future, would you still choose to rebel simply to feel the dignity of your own soul? If you had to choose between a life of physical comfort where your thoughts were policed and a life of hunger and cold where your mind was entirely your own, which would you find more dignified? Have you ever felt a memory tugging at the edge of your mind, a ghost of a world that was kinder and brighter, only to have it slip away the moment you tried to touch it? If the people around you began to disappear one by one until it was as if they had never existed, would you have the courage to keep saying their names in the dark? Is it possible to truly respect someone who demands your absolute obedience? Or is that feeling actually a hidden, twisted form of fear? What is the smallest, most mundane object you possess that holds the greatest weight of your history? If you were told that your mother and father had sacrificed everything for a cause you didn't believe in, would you feel grateful for their love or resentful of their choice? Do you think it is braver to die for a grand idea or to live a long, quiet life of tiny, secret resistances? If you could look into the eyes of your younger self, what is the one thing you would apologize for forgetting? When you see someone being treated with cruelty, does your heart break for them, or does it harden in an effort to protect yourself? Would you rather be the person who delivers a painful truth or the one who receives a comforting lie? If you knew that your most beautiful dream was actually a manufactured illusion designed to keep you happy and quiet, would you choose to wake up into a nightmare? How much of what you call yourself is actually just a collection of things other people have told you to be? If you could plant a single seed of doubt in the mind of a tyrant, knowing it would take 100 years to grow, would you consider your life well spent? If you lived in a house where the very walls seemed to listen, would you find comfort in the noise of others, or would you long for a silence that could never be broken? How would it feel to look into the eyes of a child and see not innocence, but a cold and calculated loyalty to a system that doesn't love them back? If you knew that your most affectionate gestures were being judged by the people closest to you as signs of weakness, would you harden your heart until it turned to stone? Is there a part of your childhood that feels like a forgotten language? And do you ever find yourself whispering its words just to see if they still have power? Would you be willing to be a hero if it meant that no one would ever know your name and your enemies would claim your victories as their own? What is the most terrifying thing about the thought that the future might not belong to the thinkers, but to the followers? If you could save a person's life by betraying your own most sacred principle, would you choose the life or the soul? Do you think it is possible to be truly happy in a world where everyone is required to be the same? Or is the sting of individuality the only thing that makes joy real? When you feel the weight of history pressing down on you, do you feel like a tiny grain of sand or the vital spark that keeps the fire of humanity alive? If you were certain that you were going to be erased from existence tomorrow, what is the one thing you would do today that is purely, selfishly, and beautifully yours? How do you distinguish between a heart that is full of hope and a heart that is simply afraid to admit it has given up? If you could leave a message for someone 100 years from now, would you tell them of your triumphs, or would you warn them of your mistakes? Are you more afraid of being alone in your truth or being surrounded by people who believe a lie? If a voice whispered to you in a dream that you would meet in a place where the light never fades, would you spend your waking life searching for that person, or would you fear the brilliance of what they might reveal? Is it more painful to remember a time when you were truly loved and lost it, or to realize you have never truly known what it feels like to be seen without judgment? If the world told you that your memories were a form of madness, would you have the strength to trust your own eyes over the evidence of everyone else? When you look at your own hands, do you see tools of creation or the marks of a life spent trying not to be noticed? If you knew that your final words would be recorded but never heard by anyone who cared for you, Would you still speak from the heart, or would you say what was expected of you to keep the peace? What does the place where there is no darkness look like to you? Is it a sun-drenched meadow or the cold, sterile light of a room where nothing can be hidden? Would you be willing to become a ghost in your own life if it meant that one day, long after you were gone, a single truth you held would become common knowledge? If you felt the walls of your world closing in, would you find more comfort in a physical touch or in the silent understanding of a stranger's gaze? How much of your loyalty is born from genuine belief? And how much is a shield you have built to protect the people you love? If you were the only person left who believed in the concept of right and wrong, would those words still have meaning, or do they only exist when two people agree on them? What is the one thing you have done in your life that you are most certain was an act of pure, uncoerced free will? If you could choose the flavor of your last breath, would you want it to taste of victory or of a simple, forgotten joy from your childhood? If you had to watch the person you love most vanish into a dark sea to save your own life, would you spend the rest of your days trying to justify your survival, or would you let the guilt become your only companion? Is there a place in your mind, a golden country, where the air is sweet and the grass moves in the wind, and who is the first person you would invite to walk there with you? If you woke up every morning to a voice screaming at you to move, to work, to be better, would you eventually lose the ability to hear the soft whisper of your own desires? Do you believe that a mother's love is a natural force that can survive any political storm? Or is even the bond of blood something that can be systematically dissolved? If you were forced to exercise your body while your spirit was starving, which part of you would break first? What is the most precious thing you have ever thrown away because you were too afraid to keep it? If the history of your entire life was erased and replaced with a series of clean, professional lies, would you eventually start to believe them just to stop feeling so alone? Is tragedy still possible in a world where no one is allowed to have deep feelings? Or does the loss of privacy also mean the loss of the soul's weight? If you could reclaim one forgotten smell from your childhood that makes you feel safe, what would it be, and why does it haunt you now? Would you rather be a person who remembers the truth but lives in constant pain, or a person who forgets everything and lives in a state of hollow cheerfulness? How much of your current identity is built on the sacrifices of people whose names you can no longer remember? If you found yourself standing on a sinking ship, would your first instinct be to save yourself or to hold the hand of the person standing next to you? Can a heart truly be pure if it has never been tested by the temptation to betray someone? If you possessed a magic eraser that could remove any one mistake from your history, not just from your memory, but from the records of the entire world, would you use it, or do you believe your scars are the only thing that make you authentic? How would it feel to spend your days creating lies that you know everyone will accept as truth? And would you eventually start to admire the beauty of the deception? If you could rewrite the ending of your most painful heartbreak, would you make it a happy one? Or would that steal the depth of the person you became because of that pain? Do you think it is possible to truly love a version of someone that is purely a construction of words and images? Or does love require the messy, unedited reality of a physical presence? If you were tasked with vaporizing a person from history, whose name would you find it hardest to delete? When you see the world changing its mind overnight, do you find yourself shifting with the tide to stay safe, or do you hold on to your original truth like a stone in a river? If you knew that your most private thoughts were the only things in the universe that hadn't been edited, would you guard them with your life, or would the burden of being the only witness to the truth become too heavy to bear? Is there a lie you have told so often that it has finally started to feel like a memory? If you could look into a mirror and see the version of yourself that the world wants you to be, would you recognize the eyes looking back at you? How much of your loyalty to your country or your community is based on what they actually do, and how much is based on the stories they tell about themselves? If you found a scrap of paper that proved a great leader was a fraud, would you burn it to preserve the peace of the people, or would you shout the truth until your throat was raw? Would you rather be a forgotten hero in a world of lies, or a celebrated icon in a world that doesn't really know you? If you lived in a world where the words for freedom, honor, and justice were slowly being erased from the dictionary, would you still be able to feel those things in your heart, or do we need language to give our emotions a home? Have you ever met someone whose intelligence felt like a cold, sharp blade? And did you find yourself wanting to get closer to the edge, or wanting to run away to someone warmer and simpler?